everyone. You're watching The Thursday Show, and I'm Pastor Chelsea. And today I have a special guest, Travis Wolff from the Counseling Center. Hey, Travis.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So I know because you're a counselor, you have a lot of letters and things after your name. Can you give us the official title you have?
Officially, it's Travis Wolff, LMSW, which is Licensed Master of Social Worker. So I'm technically licensed to do therapy in the state of Michigan.
That's a mouthful, so it's good that you remember it because I might not.
Yeah.
Well, a couple weeks ago, Travis came in and he spoke to our student ministries about anxiety and depression, and I heard you did a fabulous job, so good job. And I thought, that is so good for our students. They need that so much, but our adults need that too. Mm-hmm. So I decided to bring Travis on today for a conversation about mental health.
Yes.
You ready for it?
Let's get into it.
All right, so my first question for you would be, what is mental health?
Right. So mental health, just to kind of get the basic definition, would be it's kind of part of our emotions, our feelings, our statuses inside that we don't really see very well. You get to your basic emotions of like anger, sadness, happiness, joy. That kind of all flows into the mental health of it. Overwhelming emotions can get that kind of reaction. So when you think of health in general, we kind of have the triangle sort of, you like imagery, so triangle of your physical health, your spiritual health, and your mental health. So mental health is very much with inside. And it gets very confusing because everyone's is different and there's not a solution. Kind of like if you have a broken bone, it's really easy to figure that out because, I go to the doctor and it goes in place and it's set. There's not really a guaranteed this will help everything magically just get better in 2 weeks and then I'm set. So mental health can be really confusing, but it's also a very, very important part of our life, and it's something that always needs to be addressed and kind of talked about.
That's really helpful because that means there's both internal factors as well as external factors that can impact our mental health.
Correct.
So then, does our mental health fluctuate? Does it go up and down?
Yes. So technically, how I kind of describe it is life kind of goes in like a wave pattern, kind of like an equilibrium. And it's a very natural pattern to have some days where you're really hyper and some days where you're a little more down. When mental health really starts to show that it's not in a good spot is if it stays down here for more than a couple days and we then come up and maybe that feels good, but we're down here for, let's say, a week or two, that gets really scary. And that's one of the things that we describe depression with is when you're in that lower state for about 2 weeks is when we kind of get into the major depressive episode territory. And that might take a while for it to come up. And that's when it gets, like I said, really scary because it feels like that's the new normal. Same with if you get really hyper for a while. If you're hyper for more than 4 days in a row, that's kind of weird for everybody. And I don't usually have this much energy. I'm not sure what's going on with me. And that can be really high strung, like anxiety. And you might feel really stressed about certain situations. So you have the drive to get things done, but you almost feel like there's a cattle prod coming behind you, and that's not a great feeling either. So we try to figure that out.
So what you're saying is that each person has kind of their baseline of what normal for them might be and how they respond to things.
Right.
And that's not going to be the same for me as it is for you.
Not at all. And that's one of the hard parts about mental health because, again, when we look at physical health, it can be, again, broken bone. For me and you, it's the exact same thing. If me and you are dealing with anxiety, you might handle it vastly different than I handle it. And that's okay because we have our healthy means of doing that. But yeah, it's not going to look the same thing.
So I know when you talk to our student ministries, you talked about anxiety and depression. And a lot of times those words are used together.
Yeah.
But I have a hunch that they mean different things. Could you kind of explain the differences there?
Yeah. So starting off with anxiety is a pretty normal thing that we're going to have that at a base level with just fight or flight where, if you're in a stressful situation, just for an example, I do not like public speaking. So that gets me really stressed. I can handle it because I know that I can probably get my way through this for the next 30 minutes or whatever. But if I had to do a talk in front of 8,000 people, I'd probably really struggle, but maybe I can get through it. But either way, that's another thing. Or with work, if you have a lot on your work plate or at home with kids and stuff like that, that's a normal stress. It gets really overwhelming. That doesn't mean you're not handling stress properly. anything can get overwhelming. When it gets to this level of really unhealthy amount of stress, we're talking about like you're losing sleep over things because you're worried that you did one thing wrong. Like if I put this microphone on wrong, everyone's going to make fun of me, and I come up to you a week later and go, Chelsea, I'm losing it. Okay, now we're kind of like, yep, you've taken anxiety to a whole different level, and that's where we need to maybe have a conversation about things. Same with depression. Depression with sadness and depression are not the exact same thing. Sadness is a very common emotion. If you have your grandmother pass away, or a family member, or a breakup, or a job loss, you're going to feel emotions towards that. It's completely normal. When it starts to linger, and now we're 2 weeks in, and it's, I'm never going to get a job again because that job was my dream job, and I'm done, and I'm never going to be able to work. Now we're getting this really negative, and okay, now we're kind of in the depressed. And that, again, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint when it hits that point, but that's the kind of, I guess, framework we're working with a lot of times.
So it sounds like when you're evaluating, your own state, your own mental state, it's okay to feel those feelings. That's totally natural and human. But when we're seeing them expand over a longer period of time, like you mentioned into 2 weeks or longer, that's probably when we should start to take note and find ways to get some help.
Yeah. And even if it's in that first week and you want to get help and talk to somebody, I highly encourage talking at any time. There's never a wrong time to get into therapy, or just talking with someone in general, whether that is a pastor, whether that's a friend, because they might encourage you to go, hey, you know what? This sounds like you have a little more going on. It doesn't mean your friend's abandoning you or anything. This is the right time to go talk to a professional, because they're going to give you a lot more tools, or a lot more just that space where you feel safe. One of the biggest things about therapy, it is a confidential space where, when I meet with people, I'm not telling their stories outside of where they're at. It stays just between me and that person. And that can feel comforting when there's not another perspective. Like, for example, if we talk about parents talking to their kids, a lot of kids will not talk to parents because parents know them super, super well. And that can feel really scary for kids to bring that up. Same with parents talking to their spouse or something like that. Even though I know we had that healthy boundary of talking with our spouse about stuff, you might be like, you know what, I don't know if they're going to see it the way that I'm seeing it, and I know how they're going to react, and I don't know if I want that. And that doesn't mean you're hiding anything. I would be very open with anyone about going to therapy, but it can be this is a whole third-party perspective giving me something and helping me feel like I'm being listened to. Again, that doesn't mean a spouse or a child is not being listened to. It's just a whole different person hearing it and giving feedback to. So yeah, I would encourage at any time you feel like, I think I need to talk to somebody, to reach out and do it, because you have everything to gain and nothing really to lose. And I know when I talk with therapists, or we talk about people who are going to therapy, not every therapist is going to fit for you. You might get one that absolutely does not work for you. That does not mean therapy does not work. You might just not have the right therapist for you. If it was a one therapist fits all, that'd be amazing. But
they would be very busy for that one therapist.
I'm not that good. I don't fit for everybody, and that's okay. And I don't get offended if a client says, hey, I think I need to see somebody else. Okay. Can I help you find someone else? Because I would love for you to find someone to be able to be there to support you. I think that's huge. So yeah, with your question, I think once it hits a line, even if it is like 2 days, and they're like, oh, something's not right, I think I need to talk to somebody. That's not discouraged. No therapist is going to say, oh, you don't qualify, get out of here.
And I think that's really encouraging, because I feel like in the past there was more of this taboo around counseling or therapy, and that may still be there today, but I think the more that we can talk, the more we can get help even before we're in that crisis type place, the better it is. And I'm all for preventative care in the counseling department.
Absolutely. There's never a wrong time just to share about how you're feeling about stuff, because your voice matters. And even a therapist might tell you what you're being upset about or freaking out about or getting overwhelmed with isn't something to get overwhelmed with, but then they'll work with you to kind of help see why that's not something to be overwhelmed about, and you have more control over it then. Again, anytime you go to a therapist, it's not admitting, I'm broken, I'm sick, I'm terrible, I'm the worst human ever. It's like, hey, I'm just noticing I got a couple things off, and I just need to talk to somebody about it.
Well, and I love it that it gives you tools and even like a visual reference point for being able to process through the things that you go through in life. And so I know you shared some practical tips with our students. I was wondering if you would share some practical tips for if you're feeling anxious or depressed right now, what would be some just simple things that you could do in those moments to help?
So the two that I kind of go through is guided imagery and breathing. So breathing, super cheesy. Everybody knows it. think every movie has referenced it at some point of just take a breath. What I'm talking about when we're in these breathing exercises, this is to slow things down and to refocus the brain. There's a lot of science that proves that this really helps us. Oxygen is very beneficial to us, so we're just adding a little bit more to our blood. So when we are getting in this space, you try to find a quiet spot where you can kind of do this. Whether that's you're in the car, I did it before I walked in here.
You were all stressed out about this.
A couple breaths and I'm good to go. But you can do that. I mean, I know with kids and they're screaming, you might need to find a little bit of space. But what you're doing is you're taking an inhale for 5 seconds, you're holding it for 5 seconds, and then you're exhaling for 5 seconds. Then you take a couple seconds and do it again. And you probably want to aim for maybe 10 of those full breaths. Obviously, if you're getting out of breath or it's making you feel dizzy, take a break. But the idea behind it is you're just slowing things down, and now I can reevaluate where I'm at and I can handle whatever's coming at me. With guided imagery, what you're doing is we are taking, again, into a quiet place and you're kind of refocusing things. With that, I like to put like the noise headphones in just to kind of give me some blockage. I might actually go for a nature walk. I know in the cold, that's probably not the best idea. There might be some benefits.
It can still be pretty outside.
Yeah, so there's some benefits to being freezing. But the idea is you're kind of taking that silence, and it kind of comes from even the Bible of saying to be still. And you are just taking your brain to a space where you feel very at peace, very content, even joyful with that. That can be a beach. That's where mine is. I'm pretty standard. I like beaches. They're awesome. But I love like the big waves in mine. I hear the seagulls. I feel the sand in my toes. You're really getting in there with visualizing.
So like adding details and layers as you're visualizing.
It's not just like you're looking at your computer screensaver and going, man, I wish I could go back there. This is like you're trying to immerse yourself. And you might do that for about 5 minutes. I understand taking 5 minutes out of a day is kind of like a no-no and there's a lot of stress going on. Obviously, use it to your own, like kind of your own will.
Yeah, figure out what works for you.
Right.
Find the space when you can.
Yeah, like if I was just to be like, hold on, I need 5 minutes real quick, and we just did this, that'd be weird.
This might not be the best moment for it,
right.
But finding the right moment.
And when you do that, again, it's supposed to help you refocus and, again, slowing things down. Those are mainly ones we use for anxiety. And other therapists have a lot of other skills, and I'm sure there's a lot of other techniques that I haven't even learned yet. At least with depression, the biggest thing I do when I encourage people with it is you can either write this down or you're giving yourself positive affirmations for what you're doing throughout the day. Depression makes you feel worthless. Depression makes you feel like every single thing that you do is wrong, no matter what you do. Doesn't matter if I just got an A on the test or I killed this interview. I might leave here and go, wow, I did terrible. And they hate me and no one's ever going to let me talk ever again.
I don't think that'll be the case.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I want to affirm you in that way.
Thank you. But the idea is I'm going to go against that voice in my head and just be like, no, I did okay. I know I talked about what I'm passionate about. I'm okay. This is not the end of the world. And if it is, I mean, I'm not a huge public speaker. This isn't my strength. I went out of my comfort zone. I'm okay with that. But a lot of people, we get so down, and having that kind of re-encouragement. And then I sometimes ask clients to write out what they're hearing they say in their head and writing the opposite to it. Because again, the things that we're hearing in there are going to be real negative. And that might come from loved ones, friends, teachers, all that kind of stuff. And they might be really easily misinterpreted. So it'd be kind of silly if like you were to say something mean to me, but you didn't mean it. And I wrote it down. You can easily defend yourself. Well, I didn't mean it that way. But that's not how my brain interpreted it. So it doesn't matter if you scream or you tell me to your blue in the face, no, I didn't mean like harm by that. My brain's already interpreted that way, and it's really hard for it to pull out. So I have to process through that myself. So that's at least a couple skills that I recommend people using. And obviously, again, therapists will give you a lot of other ones. And these are kind of universal skills. There might be more specialized skills for different cases. Again, no therapist or any therapy approach is one size fits all. It really has to be personalized and tailored to the person that we're talking to.
Well, I think those are all so good, though. The affirmations, the visualizing that space or the breathing. And the thing with those is they're all so simple. And I think a lot of times they get laughed at because of their simplicity. But how often do we actually try and put them into practice when we're feeling low or when we're having anxiety? And so I would challenge you, if you're feeling stressed, anxious, or depressed, to actually try some of these or all of these. And I'm pretty sure you're going to see a change. Maybe not forever fixed or resolved, but in that moment, bringing some relief or in the days that follow.
It's definitely not an immediate, like you're immediately going to feel like, okay, life is better. This is a slow, like habit building process that, again, when I'm stressed and I do the breathing exercise, it's not like my stress is just magically gone. It's just I have a lot more ability to complete what's ahead of me, so I know the stress can go away. And again, I know the next time I do said task, I'm probably going to feel anxious again, and I might not have to breathe the next time, but I might have to and get through it. That's kind of the whole process. If mental health was like taking a migraine pill when you have a headache, that'd be amazing. And there are medications that help. This is not a slight against medications, but it's not as easy as taking just a medication and making something go away really quickly, or the broken bone analogy. If it was, mental health would be a vastly different field. And we're still learning a lot more stuff every day. There's studies going on constantly just about how to process things differently, or new techniques. So, but yeah, those skills I think are really beneficial, just kind of as a basic tool set for people.
I love that. And even earlier on in January on the Thursday show, we were talking about habits and the benefits of them. And it is so scriptural where it talks about trusting in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways and paths acknowledge him. The words there are talking about the things that we repeat and do regularly. Those are the ways that we can acknowledge God and trust in him. And I think with mental health, it comes with those habits, with putting into practice affirmations and with breathing and visualizing and being consistent with getting healthy in this area. Yeah.
And then, I mean, like I said as well, having that person to talk to, that is not a negative thing. And if we need to cut this, we can, but I never want anyone to think because they go to therapy that their relationship with God is worse or that their faith is not strong enough. People struggle with mental illness across the board. It's a non-discriminatory thing where it hits people. And you could have the absolute perfect childhood, perfect marriage, perfect job, and still feel awful. And that doesn't mean, oh, I've done something wrong. It just might mean I need to kind of process this. My brain kind of goes on vacation, and not the fun kind of vacation. And I need to figure out what's going on with it. And there may never be an absolute crystal clear answer. But at least having the skills and the tools, whether that is using medication or using the coping skills that we talked about today to help make through that day or get through that day, that's huge, because that's kind of, that's a victory at the end of the day of, wow, today was awful and I made it. That's awesome. Good. Go me. That's really cool. That's a cool way to toot your own horn, even though, and I said this at the talk, we don't celebrate small victories very well. Like again, if me and you got dressed up and we are happy that we're here today, that might be a huge win. Now, I might have that underneath the surface that wasn't a big win for me, but we have to celebrate those small ones when we get them.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what would be some additional resources for somebody who wants to dig deeper or maybe even get some counseling or some additional help?
So there are plenty of therapy clinics in St. Clair County, Port Huron. I don't have the help card with me, otherwise I would just read those off verbatim. Obviously the counseling center right through Colonial Woods, we have wonderful therapists there. I think you guys have the phone number, and that can be put in the show notes.
We'll get in the link and in the description. You can find additional resources too.
You're expecting me to know that off the top of my head.
No, that's okay. I didn't tell you to prepare that part, but that help card, the counseling center information.
I mean, using any of the resources that are here. I know different incomes and different insurances. There's a lot of different ways, but being open and trying those kind of things, and it's okay. You can even come up to me and say, "Hey, that didn't work for me. That sounded awful. Hey, try something else." And I know that's a huge ask when you open your heart up and you tell someone something really personal and it doesn't work. That hurts. That is a pitfall of therapy. That's something we always try to work on, but I'm glad that you're trying. It's a huge win in my book if you're trying it. The other thing is there is a lot of online resources with telehealth. There's been huge jumps with COVID. I want to say it's Talk Therapy. It's an app, I think. They have therapists, I'm pretty sure 24/7 nowadays.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember what the costs are. I can't remember, but I know there's a bunch of resources online, different forums where you can post on like group chats or forum chats to say, "Hey, I'm really down today. I just want you guys to know that." And people will lift you up. There's a lot of people out there who realize that depression is awful, anxiety is awful, and you're loved. You're not alone in this. And odds are you're probably more like a lot of other people. One of the things is that even though, like I said, mental health isn't a one-size-fits-all, when I start hearing from people and they start telling me stuff, I can kind of like you almost guess where they're going. They go, yeah, no one's ever said that before. I know, right? It's not fun. No, it's awful. All right, now we're here. Let's get talking. So yeah, I would definitely encourage, like we said earlier, anyone to go out and find someone to talk to, because there's nothing to lose. And I understand it is nerve-wracking. It's scary. It's okay to tell the therapist that you're scared. I make the joke with all my clients, kind of like, how nervous are you right now? Oh, kind of a lot. Let's see if I can dispel that by the end of the session. And usually, I think I'm at a 98% rate right now of everyone going like, yeah, you're not scary. You're more weird than anything. And it's like, that's okay. I'll take that. But yeah.
Well, Travis, I really appreciate you coming in today. And now I'm sure your calendar is going to be booked solid because everyone's going to want to come see you, which is good because it means that everybody is developing and getting healthier for their mental state. So thank you again.
Yeah.
And like I said, check out the links in the description that will go through all the details of different resources you can have, ways you can connect and reach out. And I hope that this was helpful for you. It was very helpful for me. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's what we have for this week. I will see you next Thursday, and until then, have a great week.